Howdy everyone and welcome back. So I have something really fun planned today. Here where I live, it's time to plant our fall vegetable gardens. And I thought I'd bring you along to show you everything I'm going to plant in mine and a few tips and tricks I've learned along the way to get a bigger and longer harvest on your fall vegetables. So let's go check it out. So here in Texas where I live, it's August and it's still pretty hot outside. And that's actually kind of a good thing for a fall vegetable garden. I found out if you plant when it's still a little bit warm, it helps the seeds to come up a little bit faster than if it's already cold outside. But you want to plant to where the warm season's not going to last much longer, because these are all cool season plants, of course, like broccoli and cauliflower, things like that. So they don't really like warm temperatures when they get big, but they do like a little bit warm temperatures to get started. So we're going to go ahead and plant them now. And in this bed, I'm going to put in things like, I'm going to do a row of Brussels sprouts, of broccoli, and of cauliflower. And I think this is going to be really good. So let me show you one of the things I do when I plant. Okay, so the first thing you always want to do is to clear out as much grass and weeds as you can, because it's always better to clear it out before you get started than trying to do it and work around your seeds, because if you pull out weeds once the seedlings come up, you might end up pulling up your seeds. So I've already done that in this bed. I've gotten out as much as I can. I'm sure I missed a little bit, but you're not going to be able to get it all no matter what. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little trench down the sides, just kind of make a row. And the way I always tell people is, if you don't have the seed depth on the back of your seed packet, I would say don't plant it any more than 3 times deep as the seed is wide. So I would say, like, if it's a little small seed, don't plant it too deep, because you're gonna end up getting it so deep it won't be able to reach the surface. And don't plant it too shallow, because then it'll just dry out before it ever gets germinated. So just like I said, no more than, I would say, about 3 times as deep as the seed is wide. That's always a good rule of thumb. So like I said, I'm going to make my trench. I'm not going to plant the whole row all at once, because I want to stagger my planting, is what it's called. So I'll plant a little bit now, and maybe next week I'll plant a little bit more, and maybe the next week I'll plant a little bit more. So that way I'm getting a harvest in succession. I'm kind of getting multiple harvests rather than getting all of them at once. So I'm going to plant Brussels sprouts in this bed, some cauliflower in the next row over, and then some broccoli. So I'm going to get these planted, and I'll get back to y'all after that. So in this bed, what I'm going to plant is some early-on cabbages, and the reason why I'm choosing that variety of cabbage to grow is because it's a smaller variety, and it grows a little bit better in raised beds where it's more compact space. You can grow more of them in a smaller space. Of course, they're going to be a smaller cabbage, but they're still going to be good. And with any of your cabbages and broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, you want to make sure you have very healthy soil, because they require a lot of nutrients to grow, namely nitrogen. So you want to make sure you have good, healthy soil. And I just kind of make sure to do that with some cow manure compost mix that's well-rotted kind of cow manure and compost, to where it's not going to burn my plants with the nitrogen or anything. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to plant one row like I did over there. I'm only going to plant one row now, and then I'll come back in about a week or so and plant the second row. That way I can get a multiple harvest crop rather than getting them all at once. So I'm going to get these planted, and we'll move on to the next stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to plant next is probably one of my favorite vegetables. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plant this whole bed in carrots. And unlike with my cabbages and broccoli and Brussels sprouts, I want to make sure not to give carrots high nitrogen, any kind of nutrients if I can help it, because all that will do is make a lot of green tops and not many roots, and we're going after those roots. The way I make sure to get good healthy carrots is I put a good helping of bone meal into the soil before I plant the seeds, and that's going to give it the potassium and some phosphorus, things like that, to where it's going to help build those roots instead of the nitrogen, which goes to grow a bunch of leaves. It has some nitrogen, but it's not high nitrogen. So I'm going to get these planted. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bone meal and get a couple of good handfuls and kind of dust it around in there, and that's going to give it some good nutrients. It's going to help it out. And just kind of turn it in just with your fingers, and that's all you got to do for carrots. And then all we're going to do now is plant our seeds. Okay, so I'm actually going to plant 2 kinds of carrots in this bed, and the way I'm going to do that, well, I guess I should say what kind of carrots I'm going to plant. I have Danvers half long and Danvers 126 half long, and all I'm going to do with these seeds is, they're really small. Let me show you. Hold on. Let me show you these seeds. Can we see? They're little bitty seeds, so we don't want to plant these deep at all. I'm just going to kind of sprinkle them over the top, and just kind of turn them in a little bit. So all I'm going to do is just go along here and just kind of space them pretty good, but just kind of sprinkle along the top. You can do them in rows, but a lot of times I just have more luck by just kind of loosely sprinkling them on top and then turning them in just a little bit. And now the next ones I'm going to plant are called Cosmic Purple Carrots, and these are like legit purple, guys. They will definitely stand out, and I'm going to put them on this other side of the bed where I can kind of tell which one's which. I kind of sprinkle them a little bit in the middle if need be, but yeah, just kind of sprinkle them across, and you can always thin them out later. I can't stress that enough. You can always plant a lot of seeds and thin them out later, and because I would rather have seeds come up than plant them thin and not get enough to come up to even make it worth it. So I got all these planted. Now I'm just going to kind of loosely dust around on the top and kind of cover those seeds with a little bit of soil, and that's going to get them covered enough. And now we're going to go on to the next thing. So before I get into what I'm going to plant in this, I just wanted to show y'all you don't have to have fancy pots or planters or raised beds to grow a garden. You can use just about anything. In this case, we used the top of an old grill that didn't work anymore, and it makes a great planter box. We upcycled a grill top to make a planter box, and it already has an already made drain hole with the smokestack at the bottom, and it drains really well. So in this one, I'm going to plant another root crop. I'm going to plant parsnips, and what a parsnip is, it's kind of related to a carrot, but it's more of a thing you'd put in stews. They're kind of mild, a little bit sweet. They have a great flavor, and like with the carrots, any of my root vegetables, I like to add a little bit of bone meal because it just seems to help root vegetables a lot to add bone meal to the soil before you plant your seeds. So we're just going to dust that along, give it a good amount, and then we're going to turn it in like we did with the carrots. Just kind of loosely turn that down into the soil with your hands. And like I did with the carrots, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these parsnips and I'm just going to kind of loosely sprinkle them along the top. And that's going to give them a good space. As long as you space them, I'm just going to rip the top off this. It's giving me trouble, guys. Can't open a seed pack. What's wrong with me? Okay, so yeah, all I'm going to do is kind of loosely space these, kind of eyeball them where they got a few inches space apiece, and just kind of come along here. You can kind of see these seeds. They're a little bit different than the carrots, but kind of similar. And we're just going to kind of loosely sprinkle those into this bed and kind of turn them in a little bit where they're just about a half inch deep, not even that, maybe like a quarter inch, just to where there's a little bit of dusting of soil over the top to where they don't blow away or dry out. And just kind of take your fingers and tease the soil to where It kind of gives them a little bit on top, like I said. And that's all we have to do. So the last bed I'm gonna plant with vegetables is gonna be this long bed I have along the fence I was growing my yard long beans on. If you didn't see that video, be sure to go check that out because I'm gonna use that same space in a similar way. I always recommend for people to use their surroundings to give themselves more growing space because the more growing space you have, the more produce you get for you and your family. So in this case, I'm gonna use this fence that just happens to be here anyways. I'm gonna plant snow peas and sugar snap peas all along the back side of it, and they're gonna crawl up that, and I'm gonna have a lot of vertical growing space that I wouldn't have normally had. And along the front here, there's gonna be a narrow band of space that I'll have to plant something in, but it's not big enough to grow a lot of things. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna plant spinach in a long row all along the front of this bed and grow the peas on the back, because the spinach you can plant really close and you can just get a lot of harvest from. So I'm gonna plant this along this front bed, and that way I have all the growing space that I can get out of this bed. So I'm gonna plant those, and then we're gonna go on to the next thing. So not only is it a good time to plant a fall garden, there's a lot of flowers that need to be planted in the fall or do well with planting in the fall. There's many flowers that need to overwinter, is what it's called, where they have to go through a cold cycle before the seeds will even sprout. Things like bluebonnets, which are a favorite around here, you have to plant those in the fall and let them grow for a little bit and go dormant during the winter to be able to flower in the spring. So I'm gonna go along here and plant some of the flowers I like. I'm gonna plant some things like larkspur. I saved these seeds, I have them in these little containers. I'm gonna plant some larkspur, they're beautiful. I love the purple flowers on them. I'm just gonna kind of scatter the seeds loosely, kind of like I did the carrots, because they are little seeds, little bitty seeds. I'm just gonna kind of scatter them in one area, and then I'm gonna plant some purple cone flowers, and I'm gonna put them along in here. These are both great for pollinators. The bees and butterflies love the purple cone flower, and so do the hummingbirds. So all I'm gonna do is take these seeds and kind of scatter them around in a given area that I want. And you could plant these in a little pot or a container and get them started first if you want to. Same way with all the vegetables we did today, besides the carrots. Like if you want to start your cabbage, your Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, things like that. If you want to start those kind of plants in containers first and get them started, that's fine. Or you can just direct seed them like I did. So I'm gonna get my larkspur and kind of give them a little scatter around here. And things like carrots and larkspur, you want to direct seed those just because it's better, they don't transplant very well. Larkspur might, but as far as carrots and stuff, you want to put those direct seeded. But these larkspur do great, just kind of scatter the seeds, they will reseed themselves. So yeah, that's all we gotta do. We just go along here, scatter some seeds, and kind of give them a little dusting like we did the carrots. And that's all we got to do. So once you get all your seeds planted, what you'll normally want to do is water them in really well. That's going to help them get started sprouting, and that's just going to help them all get started to grow. In my case, it's about to rain here, and I always let nature work for me where I can. That's less work I have to do, and the rain's better for it anyways. But yeah, that's all we're going to do for the fall garden this year. We're going to wait and see what all comes up and how it does and what we're going to do after that. But right now the sun's sticking out like socks on a rooster, and I'm burning up out here. So if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you have any questions about anything I planted today or the way I planted it, leave those down in the comments. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you can be there for when all the new videos come out. And until next time, I hope you'll join me right here on The More You Grow.